Yeah.
That's what I call people who actually read. If I don't have audiobooks, I'm in some trouble, you know.
Wow.
I'm in some trouble. Yeah. Reading is fundamental. It's fundamentally difficult for me. Yeah. I read for so long. I have people been complaining and saying we don't introduce the guests, right? So I have a written introduction here. Welcome to the Corie Shepherd podcast. Welcome back to everybody who's been listening. Welcome to all the new listeners. You'll tell me how I do, right?
Yeah.
Today I have with me Attillah Springer, creative strategist, cultural consultant, producer, researcher, and storyteller.
Yeah.
How we looking? Good?
Yeah.
I get a direct from your website. We know about to introduce somebody.
Hello.
This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, David and these folks book people months and months and months in advance.
Yeah.
They just keep coming here and say, well, when we talking to Attillah? So we have plenty of things to talk.
So much.
So much. And I get instructions from Marsha Messiah.
Right.
She say from the time she see the second guest, she say, go and get Attillah now. For all this nonsense, you'll be talking about Carnival. She say, go and get Attillah to set you straight. So you'll do that. Everything.
I'm good.
You feeling good?
It's my season. It's the most wonderful time. When people talk about the most wonderful time is Christmas, no.
It is.
No.
Well, the Carnival and Christmas now becoming one in this country, you know what I mean? It's a blurry line. As a parent there myself, I like my parang season and them kind of thing. But no, from Boxing Day kicking, if that, it's song releases.
You know, I personally love that transitory period, you know, like the sky is this kind of fresh, new blue when rainy season now finish and
the place kind of cool still.
The place kind of cool still. It's a little bit quiet. You know, start to hear a little steel band around your community practicing.
Yes.
There's something beautiful about that little quiet time right before
it's
Carnival.
A tight time now.
It's a tight time now. It's a really, really tight time now.
Like even, as you say, steel bands practicing and Fetes starting and stuff, there was a time where you were introduced to the music of Carnival through those things. It was the steel band and the music that you might hear in a Fete or the bands.
Yeah.
But now the radio and the streaming providers and things, people know all the music before they go in the Fete. Like in the first week of the year, for the first time in a long time, I went to a Fete on New Year's Day. And I find, it's a big difference for me. I usually try to push my Fete in close to Carnival as possible for budgetary reasons and so on, But I was excited to see how much people whose Fetes, youths, they know all these songs by the time they come. The Fetes is a little bit of a departure from what we know.
Yeah.
But these Fetes is why Marsha tell me bring it here. Because all this song more Fete promoters and Marsha said that is not Carnival. So I come here for a specific reason. And I'm excited to talk about the Canboulay Ritual Enactment.
Yeah.
I want to tell you 2025 was the first year I went there. First year I came in person.
I forgive you.
I know. I was hoping we started there. You see what drinks is doing? Ask mommy for my forgiveness too. Ask everybody. But it was my first time there. It is special. I think we all know it. How we treat it might be different. We'll talk about that. But maybe I can tell you my experience with it and what stood out to me the most. First, I reached late. I couldn't see nothing.
Right.
It was real people. And I tell myself earlier because I reached about 4:30. I say I'm
Very
inside.
late.
That's my kind of time.
Very late.
What's the time to really reach? What's the time to reach to get a seat?
If you don't reach at 2, you're not going to get...
At 2?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And what time you start?
We start at 4.
Oh, wow.
So, and this is something that has been developing over years. What we found is that people are arriving earlier and earlier, right? Because there is a desire to be at this Canboulay thing. So we have people who reach early because they're just coming from a fete. And they don't want to go home because they know they will fall asleep, right? So you have those first grapper people who reach, who are the fetters, right? And you see them there, they're bepping on themselves like for 2 hours in the stands. And then you have like school students. So we've had groups of school students who come from as far as San Fernando. What they do is they sleep in the school the night before, and then their teacher hires a maxi and brings them up the road. So they reach there like 2 a.m., right? Our cast call time is midnight. Well, it's 1 o'clock. We try to make it midnight because of different security issues and that kind of thing, our call time is a little bit earlier.
I see.
But when we reach there for our call time, there are people there already, right? There are people there who's sitting down watching, There's also this kind of energy that exists in the space. It's very, very ancestral. It's very spiritual. Constantly, we have situations where there are people in spirit possession. There are people manifesting ancestors. All sorts of things are going on in the space. The other thing that I'm looking for is a dog, right? So there's a dog that, it's not the same dog.
Yeah.
But dog is symbolic of the Orisha Ogun. And Ogun is the owner of the road.
Right.
And so anytime we are in Piccadilly, there's always this dog that's passed through. Right. Yes, you can say that. You can say that Trinidad have plenty dogs. You can say that. You can say that. You can say that Trinidad have plenty stray dogs. But there is this thing that happens where like a dog will always pass through and just be checking out the scene and then go away.
Part of the ritual.
And so that's also part of the ritual. So you have these couple hours of quiet, and then it's getting louder and louder and louder, and people are coming, and people are calling you on the phone. I can't find nowhere to park. And can I get in at this time? And like this year, I had to have a very stern conversation with the head of security for the president, because we told them, please get there at midnight to do your security sweep, right? They reached there 2:30, and then buffet me up because it have people there.
Yeah, of course,
and I was like, ma'am, this is why we told you come at midnight to do your security sweep. I cannot now put out all these people. Right?
Yeah.
So that you can do a security sweep. Canboulay belongs to the communities of East Port of Spain, and it belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And so there is a way that the people take ownership of that morning, even to the point where we have, had to put in certain security measures because we have situations where, like in the first few years, people used to come and get involved in the fight.
They want to be part of it. If it's riots, it's riots, huh?
Yeah. So it's like people coming to pelt cough at my dancers and thing, and I'm like, Sir, please, I beg. This is a student. This is, we worked on choreographing this. So please, although you might think that this belongs to you, please do not come and beat my actors and my performers. Please, I beg.
Yeah.
Right?
When you talk about governance, I had an experience watching a man with a board. We had a brand newly minted prime minister at the time, and he come and do a board dance. He didn't look the most comfortable. I will say that, right? Maybe you shouldn't say that, but he didn't look the most comfortable with the board and them kind of thing. Maybe it's a workout. But I will tell you something about something you said, the parking. Like I remember getting there, and the parking is when I realized, okay, something wrong. I'm late. Because I had to park probably by All Stars Panyard. And I was lucky because somebody was leaving.
Right.
And I got a park, I squeezed in, and I came down. But that was the first thing that struck me. There's an energy to it. I like the way you put it. You feel it. Visceral.
Yeah.
And for me, and the debate Marsha and I always have a discussion about is the business side of Carnival and why our industries are not treated like industries, and why the people who invest in it seem to think is a hustle for some. They make a quick money and they leave, or it's just a party. Or because I feel, as a boy who grew up in St. James, I know what Jumbie mornings feel like. I know what it tastes like. It's different. I don't know if I could describe it. But I got that sense when I got there by you the morning, because it is typically a place in Trinidad where you stop 10 people and you ask 9 of them to go and lime. The 9 say, nah, that's not a place I'm going to lime. I might be one of the 9. So when I walking around there and I see the community and I see what it felt like, and I see how much shops open selling food and how much young boys tracking young girls, and I start to feel so at home. It sort of feel like what St. James used to be. Yeah. And I wonder for you, that sense of community, before we get to the act itself, that sense of community is something that you'll focus on fostering and building.
100%. Community is what makes Canboulay, right? And there are different notions of community that exist within that, right? So we have the community of our family, right? So Abdicated, who produces Canboulay, it's a family company, starting with my mother, Miss Eintou, who wrote the play in around 2004. And, my sister is the choreographer. And then we have people who are part of my mom's theatric community, right? So her theater community. So you had people like the late, great Noel Blandon, who was part of the production. And even before then, there was a theater community who was involved in Canboulay. And that theater community was led by John Cupid, Norvan Fullerton, and Tony Hall. They were the ones who sort of pioneered the Canboulay reenactment as a thing.
Right.
And so we built on that community that emerged and began to work with different community best village groups. Then students started to come into the production, right? So we had lots of students from the Department for Creative and Festival Arts coming into the production. We had visiting students from Pacific Lutheran University and from Hartford, Connecticut.
Right.
So there are like all of these levels of community. Then you have the drummers, then you have the stick fighters, then you have the the dancers, and then you have also the people who are actually in the physical community. So the woman who owned the snacket and the people who own the little shop on the corner there. When we turn up for our site visit, they're like, "Hey, all reach back, nice to see you all." A couple of years ago during COVID, we actually did a short film, which was shot on Kwame Ture Street. That's what I'm going to call it. And I mean, this was during COVID. And I remember there was a point at which there were hundreds of people on the road. And I was, my Bamsi was winking a little bit because I was like, if the police pass here now. Yeah. But in a way, I couldn't keep those people away from what we were doing because we were talking about their story. We were talking about their great-grandmother's story, And so this idea of community is at once a small thing and at once a very big thing.
Yeah.
And those notions of community get played with in the production because the production happens, so the play happens in a barricade the night before Juve morning. And it's basically all these people in a yard trying to figure out if they actually going to go and fight so-called Captain Baker. Because, actually, he wasn't really a captain.
So he just called himself Captain Baker?
He just called himself captain, right? He was actually a lieutenant.
I see.
And this is the kind of thing that you find out if you read the history texts that are there, right? So understanding that, the story is not really about Baker. The story is about the people who made up those communities, who decided one day, listen, this is a risk, but we have to fight for what is ours. We have to fight. We have nothing. We have this nothing. You cannot take away the nothing that we don't have,
to lose.
right? We have nothing to lose, and this is in fact a love way that's sung in the thing. What we have to lose, what we have to lose in this battle, what we have to lose in this battle. Tell Baker he ass in trouble, right? There is a way that this idea that we have nothing but each other, we have nothing but ourselves as a creative entity. Your body as a site of freedom, right? All of those things are important when you talk about community.
Of course. It reminds me of, COVID is a good example of it, where you saw the Carnival being the first thing that they say that closed is not going to happen. And I always remember Omari Ashby, who's a real Juve man.
Yeah.
And he's saying, boy, you can't stop that, So when you say body has freedom, I do remember him posting in the middle of the savannah during COVID, completely mud down because he said, my ancestors is my ancestors, and this had to be done. And my tradition is my tradition.
Yeah.
And it had to be done.
Yeah.
So this site, the importance of this site of where you have the riots and the money, you want to speak to that in terms of why you do it?
So actually, the site of the actual confrontation that happened was the corner of Duke and George Street, just outside All Stars Panyard.
Right.
And that was where the original reenactment was begun, right? but then we outgrew the space.
Evidently.
We outgrew the space. And so there was a need for us to find somewhere that was also within the East Port of Spain area. And so the Piccadilly Greens was sort of decided as a space by the National Carnival Commission that would be big enough to absorb the crowd that would come. That happened around 2010 or so.
What was the first year that it was done in this format?
So the first year that the Canboulay reenactment was done, it was actually in the 80s, and it was done by John Cupid.
Right.
And the music was scored by the late Lancelot Lane.
I see.
Right? And they actually did it as part of an emancipation celebration that was organized in Point Fortin. So this would have been actually before there was a national emancipation celebration. So I'm talking about there's like a 30-year history of Canboulay reenactment.
Once I say 80s, it's 40 now. Where are they telling we age? People in the 80s will still say it's 30 years. It's 40 years now.
Nonsense. So then after that, John Cupid was a researcher with the National Carnival Commission, and under his guidance, there was introduced these multiple regional carnivals. And so as a regional carnival celebration for Port of Spain, this Canboulay reenactment was introduced probably around late 90s, 2000. I mean, I've been digging through the records to find out the exact year, but I can't find it anywhere. So my mom was a member of the Regional Carnival Committee at that time. And she was like, but something missing from this story, because essentially what would happen is that Captain Baker would come in, the people would fight, the governor would give a speech saying, nah, it's okay.
Right.
No, we didn't really mean to interfere with your thing, right?
Right.
And Miss Aintou's concern always was, but what about the people who were involved in the fight? What made them do this? And so she wrote this one-act play. And it's actually based on the research of the great Calypsonian and historian Hollis, Chocdas, Liverpool.
Yeah, boy. Man himself.
One of my lecturers. And, this book that he has written, and I brought it today so that you could see how much piece of paper I have in it.
Yeah. I was telling them before you start, right? That when I have a book, the book is like brand new.
It's a serious tome, and I would suggest that anybody who really wants to find out what Carnival meant, and especially, we have this rhetoric that Carnival was introduced by the French, and all the Africans were doing was mocking their masters. And actually, it's a lot more nuanced and a lot more intricate and a lot more, it's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
Yes, the French brought a version of Carnival, but that was a space where Africans were not allowed, unless you were a hired musician, right? And one of the things that Hollis talks about is the fact that, even within the balls that the upper classes had, they had started to pull from the African drumming forms, the African musical forms, and they were pulling in ex-enslaved or freedmen or runaways to sing in their balls, because they understood that, listen, our thing need a little shadow benny, need a little pimento, right? so they started a culture, of course. Right? Now the Africans are doing their thing on the road. Now, are people going to come with nothing? We were told that Africans came with nothing. But what about genetic memory? What about what you know in your blood? And when people start to remember what is in their blood and what the masking that they brought with them was for, then you start to see the things that we now consider traditional mass. But all those traditional mass forms come from other more ancient forms. Cool. So the jab has a more ancient African form. The Pierrot has a more ancient African form, especially the version that we have here, which is the multicolored lappeting,
course,
right? The multi-layered kind of version, which is an ancestral masquerade. You know, a lot of the masquerades that were part of the African experience here came out of their genetic memory and came out of, you know, certain needs that you had in terms of your veneration of your ancestors, your spiritual connection to the space that you are in, your connection spiritually and otherwise to the animals and plants that are in the space. So there are multiple ways that the African masquerades took on different forms. And so it was not about mocking, because then when you also look at African masquerade traditions, you will see that for a lot of them, satire was built into the mass, right? And so it wasn't that they were mocking their masses. They were just using the form to do what it had always done, which is to say, the people in authority need to have their ways shifted every now and again and reminded that they are not above the law. And the law is the mass. Law is the mass, right? So even look at something like the baby doll. Baby doll is a statement on sexual violence that was happening in communities, right? So you have a situation where you have plenty young girls, plenty young black girls in communities who working in somebody's house in Sinclair.
Of course, again, taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of, right? And then when they have this child, who's going to take care of this? Who's going to take care of this red child in an area that is predominantly African? How does that change the dynamics of the relationships between the men and the women? And, you know, like we always want to say, yeah, well, all these women was hoes, right? But, I mean, really and truly, what does agency mean in a society like ours when you don't have any agency? You don't even have ownership of your body.
Your bargaining power or anything. With you. You know, it's funny, when you talk about ancestral memory, and it's important for me to say as well that when you say the way we were told these stories, I was told this story in Newtown Boys. Is when you say told, it is a formal system that teaches us some of these things, where they say, the French come and we masquerade and we mock and we mimic and we... And I like the fact that it said, as if we didn't come with anything, because that is also taught. And I asked Etienne, I had Etienne here at the end. First episode this year was Etienne. And funny, I was just asking him, like, when you started playing music, boy? And he went immediately to ancestors. He's like, well, I don't know. He say ancestral memories are a thing. And he said, your father is playing music. He's saying, you play music. I don't think that those things are by chance.
It's not. It's not. And I mean, you know, like if I tell you a story about my family, you know, my father was born in Grenada, right? His grandmother was she was a follower of Garvey. She went and helped build the Panama Canal, right? She was a Garveyite. She was able to save her money to ting. But one year, my father came back with a document from the archives in Grenada, and it was of all the people who had been hanged during Fetes rebellion, right, which was in 1795, and half of the people had our last name, right? And so when I think about things like that, I think about the continuity of rebellion and resistance within families. You know, I think about my great grandfather Vanquish. I think about my great grandmother Louisa Murray, who was a Garveyite. I think about the fact that I inherited a certain way of seeing the world and a certain sense of justice. You know, my father spent 9 months on Nelson Island for sedition during 1970. That's just a reality of what I grew up having an understanding of. There was a point at which the authorities, you know, they basically put them in the death row ward, the death row
cell
part of the
prison,
because mostly they didn't want them to interact with the rest of the prison population and radicalize them. So we have a situation where, you know, poets, I mean, my father was a poet, Poets are a danger politically to the society. Pan men are a danger politically to the society. You know, mass women are a danger politically to the society. And what does that tell you? It tells you that ultimately the artist is the person who is practicing the highest and purest form of political engagement.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I saw you in an interview recently. I want to say Suniti Maraj, right? I hope I have that right.
Right. It was an interview with it was about Boca Slitfest or something like that.
1970s.
Yeah.
And you were talking about revolution never stopping. You spoke on that as a point. I thought it was a profound thing to say, because I quantify revolution as saying, okay, 1970 was this, almost as that was before I born. So I see it as a year or a moment. If you could talk a little bit about that, or what you meant when you say revolution is something that always happening.
Because it is. You know, so I will say what I say every year to our cast when we begin to practice for Canboulay. I say two things about time and about revolution, right? Time for in African cosmology and philosophy is not a line, right? Time is a spiral. And so we're constantly possibly facing the same time all the time, right? So this is where reenactments are important, because you are constantly going back to where ancestors were and wondering what it was like for them and how, if what I'm doing in this precise moment is going to have an impact on who is going to come after me, right? So that's one thing about time being like this. The second thing is that Canboulay riot in 1881 was one moment in a movement that began way before emancipation, you know, and it began way before Trinidad, and it began way before Grenada. It began actually in Haiti. It began in all the uprisings led by indigenous people who were fighting for sovereignty, who were fighting for, you know, smallpox-free blankets, right? As soon as you have a situation where somebody's way of life is being threatened, you have resistance to it. And this constantly is taking place in the world. There is, you know, you know, when you scrape back all the things that existence is about, right? As human beings, what are the things that we need? We need food, we need shelter, we need, you know, some kind of medicine. And we need something that convinces us that our existence is not completely futile, right? And meaningless, right? So what are the things that come out of that? Community comes out of that. Rituals come out of that. Festivals come out of that, you know. But then somebody comes along one day and says that, you know, when you call your ancestors in this particular way, that's actually evil, right? And never mind, in my church, I'm doing an ancestral ritual every week.
Little Caesar that.
By eating the flesh and drinking the blood of somebody who has been dead for 2,000 years. Never mind, you are doing your own ancestral ritual. This ancestral ritual over here, wrong, right? So I'm going to basically kill you for doing your ancestral ritual like that. But what am I supposed to do? I supposed to dead?
Yeah, you're supposed to do theirs.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
And when you say it wrong or they were killing for it is outlawed in many places and spaces.
But the first Obia legislation that emerged in the Caribbean was in 1760s in Jamaica in response to Taki's rebellion.
Right.
Because they understood that Obia was a way that people would organize themselves and organize their science and organize their healing and organize the invisibility potion and all of that so that they would be able to fight against enslavement.
Yeah.
CLR James, when he talks about in Black Jacobins, he talks about voodoo being the medium of conspiracy. Everybody talks about Haitian Revolution, but we're afraid to talk about voodoo. And the fact that, it was a spiritual system that made a way for them to see their way to freedom. And, that's one of the things that we also focus on in Canboulay. We say that our spirituality is important to us. Again, that's a very dangerous thing to do in a society like ours, where African spirituality is still seen as of the devil, black magic. You hear so many negative things from people who look like us.
Of course.
About their own ancestral spiritual practices.
It's something you said before, like so much of it is taught, I want to say indoctrinated, but it's systematic or systemic. Like St. James is a place where I started to understand ritual fast. The things that I was drawn to as a child, and I'm not I now, we, all of us as little children, was religious festivals. To tell you the truth, Attillah, when I grew up, me know it's religious festivals. Because Hussein yard, it's about Mandy wrong, so it's about Catholic church, so it's about Baptist yard here. And one thing I sure about is anybody who fasts, there's have a feast to follow. It don't matter what religion it is, them fellas and them going to share food.
But at core, again, what is civilization about? It is about feeding people. It is about sheltering people. It is about
them core needs,
it is about core needs. I grew up in a Orisha yard on the line in Marabella. Orisha Melvina Rodney.
Yeah.
There were times, listen, when you have a feast, you're feeding a whole community. Again, we come back to the community question, right? You feed an entire community. That is why you kill an animal. You kill several animals. It's not that the sacrifice is that you are signaling to the universe that the energy that you have is to share with your community. And anything that you give to the universe positively will come back to you positively. There's a saying in Ifa Orisha tradition that says, what you do that is good is for you. What you do that is bad is also for you. And so this understanding that if you do good, it will always come back to you is central to our understanding of community. And, at its core, we just want people to feel safe enough that they could have enjoyment. And this is really the core of Carnival, that I create enough safety in my community that no matter what else going on, I could express joy at just the fact of being alive.
Yeah. And it's important. So even when you say, and I was really encouraged by the amount of youth, I don't watch your screen, I can't see the thing itself, but just the amount of youth in the community who are outside, just being youths, they're just having a good time. And you can see it's something they look forward to every year.
Because what else is going on in their community that's positive?
Yeah.
That the rest of the society actually sanctions, that the rest of the society, and let's think about it. Those communities of East Port of Spain that we label hotspots, etc., they are where the majority of our creative potential has come from, and it has taken us so long to actually be able to recognize that, Pan is amazing.
Yeah.
Pan is a wonder, And why did it take so long? Because it's little black boys who do it. It's little black boys who do it.
Yeah.
And we will never give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, something is a constant struggle and a constant fight. Like late last year, we started to see changes in, government change, and you started to see even changes in what will be sponsored versus what not sponsored and where money going, where PAN concerned. And it's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as well, because you talk about heritage economics. That's something I never heard about before you spoke about it, right? And I don't know if I had this right, and it's what I was talking about all the time, why wrong. So we're going to clarify that today, right? I have a fundamental issue with the way Carnival is treated as a business.
But it's not a business.
Well, let me say why before you get to it not being a business, right? The business aspect of it being, so there's a few commercial parts of Carnival. Let's say a fete, because a man could take $1,000, invest in that, and turn it into $1,500, which is an important part of any society for me. And there's this discussion that Jamaica Carnival and this one Carnival and who Carnival going to take over Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. My simple answer to everybody is that will never happen. You are part of the reason that I answer confidently that will never happen. And after talking to you the first time, I say, all right, now a little frightened. A little more frightened than I was before. Because, of course, I don't understand the mechanics that happen behind the scenes. And the reason I say you is because I've been to like Miami Carnival. I don't even like going Carnival abroad. I could only survive one Carnival a year. So I just go this one and I done. But what you feel when you come to the reenactment, or what you feel when you go a fete, or what you feel when you go a Calypso 10s, or you go any one of NCC events, I don't feel that in Miami. I can't feel
exactly.
it. Exactly.
So, like, it's really funny that, they say in Trinidad, the shopkeeper is king, right? That's one. You'll put that on the side, right? Okay. And we boast, there are 100 and something carnivals, Trinidad-style carnivals all over the world. Yeah, and there's only one Brazil-style carnival that you have to go to Brazil for. You know why? Because Brazil is the only place energetically where you will get the carnival that you're looking for.
Right.
You have to go, either you go to Rio or you go to Bahia or you go to, and in those regional spaces, they all have a very specific character. You don't see people doing Brazil-style carnivals all over the place.
Not exported for that.
No, it's not exported. But you know what's exported? I remember a couple of years ago, I was in Berlin, right? I just happened to be in Berlin for their carnival. They have a carnival of cultures, right? So it's a little parade that happens in the middle of Berlin. Okay, cool. They have, what do they have? They have like, there's a strong carnival tradition in northwest Germany. Right. So they have like the kind of big puppets and the kind of mechanical ting. So they have that, right? That's part of their culture, right? Then they have schools and groups from different parts of the world represented through migrants, right? So you have like a crew from Bolivia, you have a crew from Peru, you have a couple samba schools, right? And then, so I'm like excitedly looking for the Trinis, right? Yeah. Then like I'm standing up on this corner and I'm hearing like from 3 blocks down, a man screaming on a truck talking about, yes, I was the first man to play Soca in Berlin. Who remember that? And I was like, brother man, I do not care about that. Where is the representation of what Trinidad and Tobago has given the world? But we have created this soulless commercial model, which can be replicated all over the place. And what happens when you do it like that is that you lose part of why it's significant, right? So if you think about Notting Hill Carnival, for example, Notting Hill Carnival is the biggest street festival in Europe.
Yeah, millions of people.
2 million people gather in this small community for a 2-day celebration. But you could stand up on a corner in Notting Hill Carnival and not see a mass band for like at least an hour, right? There's space for everything. There's space for and I grew up in London in the 90s, so I love a little rave culture. I love my little drum and bass, right? So I'm there with the Abba Shanti and the Jazz Shaka. I'm 100% down with that. That's my growing up culture. Right? But if it's Carnival, I want to see mass. I want to hear pan. And I want to hear a little bit of soca. But those elements, because they are so highly commercialized, don't have the space. And because for a steel band in London, finding a space to practice where you're not going to be pushed out because you're making noise becomes part of the challenge of replicating your culture. Yeah. So here we have a challenge where now everybody is going somewhere else to experience a Trinidad-style carnival. It's cheaper to go Miami than it is to come to Trinidad.
Yeah, Jamaica, more hotel rooms.
It's cheaper to come to go to Jamaica than it is to... But what you get in Jamaica is not going to be what you get here.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's never take over.
And, when we talk about the business of Carnival, it's actually not about how many bands you have on the road. It is about how many flights you have coming into the country. It's about how many hotel rooms that you have. It's about how many, how many maxis that have to take people around.
A complete economy.
It is a complete structure that needs to exist. There are elements within there that also need to be buoyed up and supported, because if they are not, then your carnival has no essential meaning.
So that's where you might have changed my mind. And almost the first couple of sentences we talk about, that's where I started to get a little bit worried. Because what you say is absolutely the way I see it. I do not think Trinidad's carnival, even if you use it for a branding thing, like it have a Trinidad carnival all over the world or whatever you want to say, the reasons you pointing out is the reasons I feel it can be replicated. Because what you will get is it can't.
It's not
replicated.
Should not.
It shouldn't either.
It should be that everybody has to make a pilgrimage to Trinidad
but the
to
soil
understand
important.
The soil is important.
So they can't go export it.
You cannot replicate that feeling of walking east into the sunrise.
You can't replicate none
La
of it.
Perouse Cemetery. You know that Juve morning is always in a new moon, right? There's never a full moon for Juve. It's a new moon. It has something that's magical about that. There's something also, like when you talk about the direction that the parade goes in, it follows a particular cycle that is part of Congolese spirituality. I mean, there's certain things about the space that make it really, really important. And, one of the things that I was talking about when we were talking sometime, I was saying, I'm not going to go to Greece to check out the latest Balenciaga, shop.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to Rome to look at,
When I go there, I want to see what I'm have.
I want to see what they have.
I
want to see what they have. I want to see a 2,000-year-old thing. The difference is, yes, we have petroglyphs. Yes, we have things that are ancient here. We have Banuari Man. We have things that are ancient here that speak to our presence here for a long time. But we also have our bodies within which our energy and spirit lives. And it is deeply connected to the land. It is deeply connected to how our ancestors got here, forced and free. It is deeply connected to the fact that after emancipation, between 1841 and 1861, 6,000 Yoruba people came here. It is connected to that.
So then why people have this fear that somehow one of these foreign carnivals could take over what Trinidad Carnival looks like? Because I number one, I do feel it is not there. And that's why I keep saying it cannot happen. The only way it could happen is if we buy in 100% to this completely commercial model and we make Carnival about Fetes and pretty much whatever those elements are, and all of a sudden we bereft of the steel pan or the
But you see, this is why Jammets have to mind their business. And I remember a few years ago, I used to write a column for the Guardian, and I remember I got into this cycle of complaint. I was like, the mask and the thing, and
it's easy to get there.
And blah, blah, blah. And then one day I was just like, Attillah, hush your and do your work. Do your work. Focus on what you know and focus on what you could do, right? And that was when I shifted my focus completely and I started to focus on creating with my family company a language for how we talk about Canboulay.
Sure.
Right? A language for how we engage with Canboulay. When we start our rehearsal process, we sitting down and we're reasoning. I'm showing, we're talking about the laws. We're talking about the Bastardy Act that the Catholic Church didn't want to enforce because they didn't want to they didn't want them and their parishioners to have to take responsibility for any little half-white children that were being born because of their indiscretions.
Sure.
We talk about the Contagion Act, which was an act that was passed by the British colonies, making it so that any woman could be accused of prostitution and arrested and taken to the hospital to be checked for venereal disease. This was introduced by the British military all over the place. Yeah. We talk about the Peace Preservation Act in 1833, which banned noise making, and which was which set the precedent for the emergence of the steel pan, which was already kind of bubbling, right? We talk about there's so many things that were introduced as laws that were about really restricting the existence of African people, black and brown bodies. Yeah. Because what you find is that as soon as the indentured Indians come in as well, they start to introduce legislation. So, it's like, okay, in 1881, Baker came for the Canboulay in Port of Spain. In 1884, he came back for the Canboulay in San Fernando, and a boy died. A boy lost his life. Later on that same year, he read the Riot Act in Balidantola in San Fernando, where the numbers are disputed, but people lost their lives in the Jahaji massacre, right? Now, think about the fact that we are in a state now where we say, well, the law is the law, but the law is also an ass. And we have to understand that there was a point at which it was legal in this society for people to own people, and then that became illegal. But you know what? The people who were owning people, they didn't have a switch that went off in their head that said that these people had a right to be free. Yeah. In 1888, a switch didn't go off in their head, right? Like and they suddenly realized, oh, these are human beings. People always, the other thing that people talk about is the fact that, it had slavery in Africa and thing. But there was a law that was passed in the 16th century in Barbados that actually made a human being something called chattel, which is not quite human, right? And so chattel slavery was a creation of the transatlantic slave trade, right? And so how do you get from a point where you believe that people are not really human so that you can own them like piece of property, and then like a year later or a few months later, you believe that this person is fully human. And anything that they're doing, they're singing their song, they're making mass, they're worshiping, you're supposed to believe that they are worshiping in a way that is... So when you read the papers of the time, you see words like vile, savage, barbaric, obscene, all of these words that speak to the fact that, who were the eyes that were looking at these people?
Yeah, and who was writing the articles?
And
it's an important thing to add to that. I try to always keep at the forefront of my mind, just how we are ancestral memory, them have it too. So there's this discussion that people have now. I hear it in the States a lot, more than anywhere else, surprisingly, where you have white Americans who say, well, I didn't own slaves. I shouldn't bear the burden of that. But it's a dangerous discussion. I have a question for you in terms of what you said when you're in your planning phases. I know you said you talk to the children or the schools that come to be a part of it. This is information that you would talk to them about these things, and how interested are they like children?
We had a situation last year where, we were talking, we were just having a conversation about, various things. And actually some of the young people got really angry because they were like, why didn't I learn this in school? Why am I not learning this history? Dr. Liverpool talks about the fact that when he was an excellent history student, when he was at St. Mary's, they took away the history option to do history. And when he went and he asked his dean, why can't you do history? And the dean told him history is for big people, right? Because when you start to dig at actually what our history is, when you start to realize that there are huge companies in Trinidad that exist to this day that we shop in on a daily basis, who got reparations for the loss of their enslaved people. The documents are there. But there's deliberate not education of our people. So because we feel that if people know and understand what happened in their history, then, it's like, they'll do like Bob Marley say I feel like bombing a church now that I know the preacher is lying. But if you don't tell them, what do they have? And so Ms. Eintou always talks about you have a history to claim and to reclaim. And, it's understanding the fullness of your history, understanding that you do not begin and end with enslavement, understanding that, there is so much more to us than what we are given, And for a lot of the speaking masquerades, if you think about it, the speaking masquerades were about eloquence, were about, knowing your story. Think about a midnight robber. A midnight robber is somebody who is a griot, who knows the history of a people. But if the society telling you you're bad and you're wrong and you're evil, the story that you're going to give is a bombastic story of your evil, right? Right? But when you hear praise songs to Ogun, for example, they have that same format. They say, Ogun came down from Orun and he was very dread. He took 5 days to do this. Ogun is not smiling.
Yeah.
When he come down, he want to bathe in blood. He know what he have water home, but he going and bathe in blood, right? Yeah. He's the richest man in heaven, but he wearing palm fronts, right? So there is that same, poetry that exists within the languages and the idioms that we lost, that we still hear in our language today. Yeah. I remember going to Nigeria and feeling like I could speak Yoruba because I understood so much subtext. I understood tone, I understood body language, I understood, right? I understood so much. I felt the same way when I was in India as well. I felt like I was with my people. I felt like, there was something there that was connected to me. And so I want to say to Trinis, just dig down into who you are. Find these stories. And the other thing that happens is that, we say to young people, all right, okay, so what is your family story? Go and find out what your family story is. And, like maybe about half the time, or a little more than half the time, a young person will come back to us and say, Miss, I went and asked my mother, and she said that I had a great uncle who used to play stick, and and it's like all of a sudden they have this rich history, and there's an unfortunate thing that happens in our families because there's so much trauma in many of our families. We don't tell these stories, right? I was very fortunate that I get every single story, right? I get plenty story. I get plenty story.
You get from
because
the extended family.
I came from a line of storytellers, there was this thing about constantly telling the story over and over again. And I realized that is something that a lot of families don't have. They don't have that thing about constantly telling the story and reminding you, your grandfather's name was Vanquish, and it's like, where is that information? It's just...
Yeah, it could be fleeting. The thing is, like, I'm so sorry to go back to Etienne all the time, but he said something else that shake me, remind me of what he's saying here, because I've been complaining a lot every time I talk to musicians. I say, boy, the teaching school with this recorder kind of thing, and it's a kind of colonial way of teaching music, where you had to learn, according to Pelham, you had to learn a quaver, and then there's something along the line they change it from a quaver to a quarter note. It's hard to learn for me. And I wonder if we can't formalize the education system that we have in Ipanyard, where people learn by a certain amount of rote, learn by paying attention, the discipline that comes with it. And his response was that Well, it's kind of formalized. Because I guess
It is
a part of my
formalized.
mind is that it has to be in the school system. So even when you talk, I'm wondering, my first thing is change the syllabus and change the curriculum.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what Lloyd Best talked about. He didn't talk about school in pan. He
Pan
talked
in
about
school, I
he
understand.
didn't talk about pan in school. He talked about school in pan. There's a difference in the understanding, right? Because when you go into a pan yard, you learn a lot about community. It's like any yard, right? And this is where I want to go back to. When we talked about the business of Carnival, I prefer to talk about the economics of Carnival, because then you bring in different theoretical positions, right? Like
Makes
theories of value, right? Theories of market, theories of, what is production? When you look at those things, you will begin to value things differently, right? So the yard as a space of value, we have not even begun to think about that and talk about that.
Yeah, you say any yard, it's true.
And, I learned this from the Orisha yard. I learned this from the Pan yard. And, I learned this from my great-grandfather yard.
Of course.
Right?
Community yards.
It's a commune. It's, and this is the other thing. We're constantly looking outside of the systems that we have in order to make a system that makes sense for us. And I'm saying that
we already have these systems.
We already have these systems. And, it's like, I wanted to mention the thing that, we talk a lot about the spirits of Carnival. Everybody have a song about the Jumbie and, the spirit calling me and this and that and the next. And we leave it at that, right? It's a surface conversation. But, heritage is the intangible. Heritage is actually the place where the Jumbie is acknowledged. Because everybody who is practicing some sort of tradition has rituals that go with it. So like stick fighters, they are practicing, they have a 40 days fasting. I know stick fighters who don't eat meat. They practice semen retention. It's like there are multiple things that people are doing. Their fasting is actually going on before Carnival and before Ash Wednesday, right? So their 40 days is an observation that understands that what they are engaging in is a ritual and an acknowledgement of the Jumbie that we all singing about and talking about and experience everywhere, right? Everywhere is experienced it. Even in the commercial bands, even in the Soca Fest, everybody is experiencing the Jumbie, but it's only in the heritage spaces that the Jumbie is acknowledged. Now, where is the place? Where is the budget line item for Jumbie?
Yeah, that's one of the greatest things I hear. So you can't put Jumbie on an Excel spreadsheet, they ain't gonna prove it.
They will just laugh at you.
Right.
They will laugh at you. So now I have to come up with all the Anansi ways to make sure that I get my Jumbie in. I get my Jumbie in because the Jumbie is there.
But is the reason why, again, you could have I'm trying to avoid calling band name and thing, right? So let me say Corie's band. It's the reason why you could have what you have here and you could carry it anywhere you could carry it wherever and partners whoever in Jamaica or wherever. But that feel is not but
also, if a system is replicable, then it could be duplicated and made better based on the resources that I have.
They're struggling to
right?
do that.
And so in an open market, if you have an open market and this product that I have here is, I could reach 2,000 people. But then somebody else who bigger see that I doing this product in this particular way, and I'm very open about it because it's successful, right? It's successful, and I'm making lots of money from doing this particular thing, right?
Procter & Gamble will take it and do it.
Yeah, Procter & Gamble will take it and do it.
What I see is a lot in the digital spaces. Was it Vine? There was this video platform. I hope I have it right. Them fellas come up with something innovative and them fellas offer them a bunch of money. They say, no, then they just make a version of it. Even Instagram stories now took over something else. So
essentially, this is what you're seeing in the commercial Carnival. You're seeing people replicating the same model over and over again when there are multiple commercial blind spots that exist within the carnival, and that should be explored, that should be looked into, and I'm not just talking about lashes and
makeup and so
special model trucks. That's that's not just what I'm talking about.
Right.
There's, I'm not gonna say nothing else because that's my
that's don't let Procter and Gamble. Don't let Procter and Gamble come and take it.
Don't let Procter and Gamble come and take my thing. But I mean, we have so much that we could be doing with our carnival that ensures that the carnival in Trinidad remains the center that we say that it is, and that we say that we want it to be. But actually, what we're doing is that we are shipping it off, and not protecting the fact that there is something about this land that makes Carnival special in this land.
Let me ask you this: private sector investors, people who just have a fete, right? Would you say that to talk about them as a group or your experience with it, do they acknowledge that? Do people who is a fete promoter?
I don't know. I don't have any interaction with them.
Oh, no. You secluding yourself from them?
No, it's not that I secluded myself.
Right.
Actually, to be fair, there's one private sector organization, mass organization that I have a really good relationship with, and that's Lost Tribe.
Right.
Because, and I want to big up Valmiki for understanding, and I think that's because of his spiritual understanding of what, so a couple of years ago when they had their launch of Carnival, and it was on Arapisa Avenue, and they asked us to come and take part in that. And, I rocked back and I was like, And, a lot of people around us are like,
Of course, everybody watching to see what's the next move.
Now, the thing is, we don't do anything without asking the permission of our ancestors, right? So I went by my Babalao. That's what I did.
Right.
And I talked to my Jumbie. The Jumbie said, go through. And if I get permission from my Jumbie to go through with something, I go in through, right? And there is a way that, we have spaces where people are very nervous because certain things are on the fringe, on the periphery, and not getting the access that they need. People are dying with information, and, there is no way of transferring that information to masses of young people who would really like to have the information. And one of the things that I will always support Miss Eintou in is the fact that she just wants people to have the information.
Yeah, she just talk.
And so, so us getting an opportunity to go and do that little 3-minute excerpt of Canboulay as part of this this parade that happened, it was amazing. And, so many people came up and said, I've never seen this before. Because actually, Piccadilly Greens could only hold 1,000 people or 2,000 people, if so much, right? So it means that it's only so many people could see it at any given time, right? So what do you do in a situation like that? You have to reach into spaces where you're not preaching to the converted. You're not preaching to the people who know and understand.
I think so.
You're reaching out to the people who don't have the information so that they get a little pinch and they get a little touch and that they know that it's a possibility. This is a possibility. So, aside from that, I don't really have a lot of interaction with
the people in that space.
With the people in that space. And I think that's unfortunate because I feel like there is a way that there could be a mutual exchange of ideas, of knowledge, of information, and of resources that would make sure that everything gets sustained. Because if you don't have people in town, then you don't really have Carnival. People have stopped coming to Carnival in town. And that's because there is nothing in town for them to see except for 10,000 Bamsi shaking.
Which is good. I don't want to knock that.
But
but I hear you loud and clear.
Bamsi and Punky Sling. I mean, what is that about?
No, but the thing is this, right? And let me tell you why I asked. Because it's like two things that I always liken it to, right? Without Point Lisa, so or the infrastructure that's went in Point Appeal. I see what you're doing and many other people in this space as the infrastructure of what Carnival has to be. You cannot leave that on one firm, because if somebody had to come and build that, they cannot have a carnival. They cannot have mass. They can't have much, except they can have a commercial carnival. Let me put it like that. You can't sell a costume if the infrastructure isn't built. So the infrastructure, sometimes some people might see it as the building on the North Stand, the building on the stage. But I feel like the characters as part of the infrastructure, the Canboulay Riots, the Pan, those things, I am not sure that you want to leave those things to chance. And when I say chance, I mean business.
But you see, unfortunately, somebody asked me recently, so how are they making out, because, money going down. I was like, yeah, but we never used to get any money anyway.
So wait, so
we lean on our community a lot.
So you don't get government funding or any?
We get, okay. So I have to say that we believe that Carnival emerges fully formed, right? And, when there's a competition, when there's an event, it just magically appears, right? But in order for us to have a performance on Carnival Friday morning, it's months of preparation. It is spiritual preparation. It is physical preparation. It is making of costumes. It is drums. It is stick. Somebody had to go in the bush and cut the pui. All of those things need to happen, right? Somebody had to sit down with the script and say, all right, how we changing it? How we making it responsive to what's going on in the society now? Somebody had to learn these songs. Somebody had to practice these songs. All of these things. So when you get a payment at the end of Carnival or whenever they decide to give you the money.
I've assumed that.
Anyway, whenever whenever you get the money, right? This is months of investment of time, of resources on your hand, on your part, that you are putting into maintaining a community, maintaining a yard, maintaining all the systems that make sure that the yard is possible.
Yourself.
And maintaining yourself. And so it is extremely difficult. There's no reason. To be honest, if it wasn't for Canboulay, I probably would not be living in Trinidad.
Yeah, so this is where I get frightened, Attillah. This is where my fear comes in. Because if we allow that to happen, we have an exportable carnival that we're going to lose. I hope I'm never alive to see it, but we will lose it because we think the infrastructure is just the rules.
It's not necessarily that I'm going to export Carnival.
Well, no, I'm not saying
I am going to extend what the system that I have here and apply it in different contexts.
That's what I mean.
Right?
That's what I mean when I say we will lose.
It's like I could be working with a museum in Hamburg.
This is my point. We can't allow that.
I could be working in Senegal.
This is exactly my issue.
I could be working in Brazil. I could be working anywhere because the system that we have developed
can be applied
for our production is replicable, scalable, and exportable.
That's a problem. It's a
problem. Only if I cannot continue to make money.
That's my point.
And I see so many things that are done so amateurishly. They're done on the surface level. They're done in a way that does not, give respect to where it's due.
Of course.
Because people come to Canboulay and they feel, they're just dancing, right? They don't know how much obey we just do to make sure that people can actually get through the production without going into possession, right? Much times rehearsal a lot of stuff because people catch power. These are the things that we need. And it is because we have these systems in place and we understand, it's the same thing. When you read about Wole Soyinka, Wole Soyinka is like one of the first African novelists to win a Nobel Prize. Wole Soyinka putting on a play in Germany somewhere and nothing going right. And Wole, who's a Yoruba man, he know that he had to go and do his thing for Eshu so that his production will go well. It have certain things that we know that other people wouldn't know because they don't have the information, they don't have the technology, they don't have the indigenous traditional knowledge. And there's a reason why all of these things existed within secret societies. Jamaitias was a secret society. They wasn't on the papers every day. There was nobody who was defending them. People were saying what they wanted about it, and they were like, yeah, well, let's talk now. We will do, at the end of the day, we will do what we have to do, which is defend our culture.
Yeah.
Because we understand what it means to us. But if there aren't enough people who understand what it means to us, and I mean, I want to talk about the cultural illiteracy that exists within, corporate Trinidad and Tobago. It's something I talk about a lot. You have people who, they just don't know. They just don't know. They just don't know. I mean, I once had a job in a different incarnation of the Ministry of Culture, and I remember being in a meeting and somebody saying something Negroes, and I started screaming and I flung myself on the ground and I said, "Don't use that word!" And everybody in the meeting was like, "What is wrong with this girl? What is wrong to she?" Sometimes that's what you need. But Trinidad is not a space where disruptors are rewarded. In fact, disruptors are punished.
Yeah, outcast.
Right? And if we look at the rest of the world, we'll see that, the people who think outside the box are the ones who are successful. So my partner is German, and we do a lot of work around design thinking and systems thinking. And, for him, coming to live in Trinidad and understanding the steel pan as the ultimate, manifestation of design thinking, it was really important for him. So now he has a completely different language for systems thinking and design thinking and design futures that is embedded in the cultural source of Trinidad. Right? There are people who live right here in Trinidad
who don't know
who will bring in somebody from England, right?
And pay them
lots of money to apply a model that not for us. That we are just going to wriggle out of because...
And when you wriggle out, they'll pay somebody else to come back and do it.
They will pay somebody else to come back and do the same thing.
They seem fair if you leave.
I hear like, hi,
yeah, there's no problem. If we allow you to leave, so if you allow people like yourself to seek happiness elsewhere, you're going to end up with that Carnival that I'm talking about that could easily ship out.
But, also we get what we deserve and what we ask for.
It's true.
And some of us want the shininess. Some of us want to hold rope. Some of us want to be in a fete that have VIP, VVIP, multi VIP. We like
but
that. We
that
like
I feel
scenes.
That's a lot. My belief is that's true. I like it. But the truth is, I don't think it could hold up. Without everything else that happens.
It cannot. Everything have to fall apart. Everything have to fall apart.
It will.
Everything have to fall apart.
That. Like I see industries set up, for instance, one of the things that I was looking at, and I was telling Marsha this as well, I remember going to San Francisco and doing an Alcatraz tour. They abandoned the prison and you went to the tour. It's something else to see.
Yeah.
But when I understood how they treat their parks and their preservatories, I wonder if it's a system like that we can work. Because every corporation that operates in San Francisco, which would include Silicon Valley, we are Green Fund and Business Levy and them things. They have a levy that they pay to maintain what San Francisco's traditional spaces or heritage spaces look like. But I don't know if something like that could work here, because I can have a fete and have all them VIP you're talking about if the core of Carnival not happening. And I wonder if it don't make sense to do it like that.
I was talking to one of my elders the other day, Roll Gibbons. And we were talking about this whole idea of sponsorship, right? And it's like I do pitch decks, and like they're like international level pitch decks. But from the time somebody see Canboulay on it, what is that? They fling it to the side. They don't even want to hear that. They don't want to hear nothing about heritage, because heritage is not sexy. Heritage is not something that you could go in with three of your friends and flam, right? Unfortunately, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And so what we need is, I go back to the question of literacy, cultural literacy. We don't have a lot of cultural literacy built into our corporate social responsibility. And without that, then we cannot have something that is holistic. We cannot have something that, gives space and value to all the various different parts. And that also suggests to me that the people who are making decisions don't see themselves as part of any other community aside from the imaginary world that is created in a Fete, right? And that to me is very unfortunate because, culture is the thing. There's this movement now that says that culture is the other SDG, the other Sustainable Development Goal. And you have multiple organizations spending millions of dollars on teaching us about climate justice and teaching us about governance and teaching us. And all I had to do is make a old mass man. And I could teach you all them things, but you don't want to give me the money to do that, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to give me the money because I'm not in that box that you created. And what I would like for us to understand is that culture is the thing that makes everything work in this society. Right?
But I feel like we're so far from that. If we don't get it in this lifetime, right? I believe?
I believe that what we need to do is create different kinds of communities, right? That are outside of capitalist expectations. All Stars is a cooperative that we need to be studying. How has All Stars been able to sustain themselves for, we have the models there.
Yeah.
We have the models there, and most of them are in the steel band world. Why is it that we are not studying the models that we have? And they all come out of yards, right? How do we sustain those models that could create economic independence and sustainability for people in communities? Because at the end of the day, it's all well and good for central government to give you $200,000 to do a 2-week project, and then they take a box and move on to the next thing. What happens when the project is finished and the children's problems are still there? It is going to take generations of healing work. It's going to take generations of restorative justice. It's going to take generations. We have 5 minutes. If you think about the spans of time, we have 5 minutes out of 2-day trauma.
Yes,
right? Now think about it. If a child is missing in your community for 3 days, right? The trauma that causes, not just to the family, but to the community, right? And then after that, after the child reach back, if the child reach back, right? How is the fabric of the family changed, right? Somebody in the family might have left. Somebody in the family might have tripped off.
Yeah.
Somebody in the family might have taken the guilt on themselves and ended their lives. We have so many things that, multiple generations of trauma that we have not dealt with. And, within our cultural forms, we have an entry point. Because, just walking up to somebody and saying, hey, you traumatized. Let me talk about it now. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And the other thing that I want to say is that mediocrity is also a trauma response, right? And we have a lot of mediocrity that good day, right?
Good enough.
We could work, right? We have this, and you see that also in our approach to our cultural forms, our cultural icons, and the space that we live in. There are no monuments that speak to us. Every street that is named after a colonizer is ancestral veneration. You are venerating our ancestor called Picton.
You can't say that. You didn't see people on these defendants. You didn't see people as defendants on social media when it changed.
we have to acknowledge history. But you know what? I travel the length and breadth of Germany, and I have never seen a single monument to Hitler. I've seen monuments that acknowledge the fact, and I was there in November when they they mark the first pogrom which is where, like the first set of Jews were pulled out of communities. And you walk along and it's little things that you wouldn't notice on a regular day, right? It's just a little tile on the ground that has the name of the person who was taken from this particular place. And on that day in the end of the day, on that particular day, they have a little candle there. That's ancestral veneration, right? It is venerating somebody who was taken. You could be in the forest and you'll see a little bench, and the bench will have a plaque, and it will say, as you sit here and take in the forest, this was the viewing point for the train that used to pass, taking people to the concentration camp. So it's like there are little ways that you can mark memory, not valorize
of course.
violent rapists,
We like
psychopaths.
Yeah, people is different. But on the topic of funding, at this point, you still have to go for corporate funding to get well. So you're still doing proposals, pitch deck, and go on. So still at that stage. Yeah. So that's where I was surprised, and that's when I started to get worried, because I don't think that to support a lot of what you're saying, had I had the keys to society, I would ensure that everybody who benefits from this Jumbie pays. I'm not sure how it could work any other way. To me, it's the simplest solution.
But they are hardworking members of the society, and they are just doing, they are making money honestly. What's wrong with you?
And they pay taxes for street light. You understand? They pay taxes for traffic light and for roads and for. Do
they pay taxes for the Fetes? Is there a clicker outside the Fetes that is monitoring how many people are going into the Fetes?
I do not know. David might know.
I don't know. That's why I'm telling you. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you want to take a guess? I feel like most of should I say that most industries, the most formalized and the biggest people in the industry is probably doing what they need to do where that is concerned. But it's very likely that most people who are doing that not. It's just if you're talking about selling food, the biggest food people in the country probably paying some form of taxes, but the smallest ones, you know what I mean? What happened, David? What I miss?
That's not my cuckoo to turn.
No. Well, listen.
You see, if I could put money in the hands of my drummers, I'm happy.
But you see, this thing.
If I could make sure that the people who are in my community could live from what they do the best, I'm happy for that.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say you shouldn't have to worry about that. If
no,
Carnival,
I shouldn't. My Mamsi shouldn't be winking in January. I shouldn't be having to call back people and people passing you straight and like looking the other way when they see you because they don't want to talk to you. I mean, come the man, we too big for that now.
Like I was telling Marshall, not in a society where for most of I born in 80. And I born into a time where it had negative lists, it had things that, but because they understand what protecting local industry is about. So it's strange to me to hear that. Again, my naivety and assumption is that the money will be provided to do this, because I can't believe you gotta go to people.
But it's funny that you should say negative lists and stuff, because I mean, my dad always used to tell me a story. I mean, he was living in Laventille during 1970, and he would as part of that Black Power uprising, they were talking about buying local, supporting in economies within the community, all of those things. And he told me a story a time about him talking to the fellas on the block about buying local and thing, and they were like, "You talking about, man? So you telling me that you want me to celebrate Christmas with Pomsite?"
Yeah, imagine that.
That was the most insulting thing to them. That they couldn't make the choice to have a special time by being able to buy an apple for their family.
Of course.
Right? And, I mean, I've heard different versions of that same story in other parts of the world. So it's like in Sweden, if you could get a banana
Yeah,
at a particular, it's like you're inside, right? Banana is the most exotic thing that you can get.
It's funny.
Right?
Now you might answer some questions I had in my mind as a child, because when apple and grapes started to come back in the country, there was a time before they lifted it, they bring back fruits for Christmas.
Yes.
We drive through town, to see the apples and grapes.
Yeah.
People are selling apples and grapes on the well, it wasn't Promenade then.
Charlotte Street.
Yeah, on Charlotte Street, that's right. We drive through to see it. I was like,
Rue de Charlotte.
You know what I mean? So listen, I'd ask you, so heritage economics, as you were saying, is a real thing. The economics around protecting our heritage and what we have is something that you spoke about.
Yeah.
This is what you're talking about here in terms of...
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about intangible heritage. I'm talking about, goods, products, services. If that is the neoclassical economic language that you want to use, because I cannot define a job as a service. That's not what a job is. And a job's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, right?
A job is for COVID.
A job is not a pretty thing. A job is a mass of discomfort, right? So I cannot say that a job is a service or product.
Yeah.
The language also has to shift, and it has to be relevant to what the thing is, right? And so, when are we going to develop, going back again, when are we going to develop the language to talk about what we have?
Where we running from? What do you think it is? Because it seems to be societal that we...
It's just insecurity. It's just fear of self. It's just, it's just that we are so afraid of who we are. Although when you see who we are, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. There's, when you're driving through Woodbrook and you're seeing somebody, they're skinning from here, their teeth skinning from here to there, and they carrying a little piece of their costume underneath their arm. Listen, tears, just tears, right? Or you're coming around the savannah and you had to stop because a pan rock rolling very slowly across the road. All of that is part of the ritual. But again, where is the language for that within what we are creating?
Yeah.
And it means that our academics need to do more theorizing. Yes, we have Joanne Tull has spoken extensively about the Carnival ecosystem as opposed to the Carnival economy. She talks about an ecosystem. And so when you think about ecosystem, it's much more nuanced, and you can see how different things feed on each other. I'm developing a theory of ogunomics, which centers the spirituality, but also centers the question of reparations and the question of, recentering community and all of the principles of Ogun, who is the ultimate creative urgency, right? Ogun is the owner of the road. Ogun is the owner of the steel pan. Ogun is the owner of, again, that creative urge that we have. That's just one word that comes out of my spiritual understanding. In the night when I can't sleep, I'll be listening to, mythology podcasts, right? About Zeus and this and that. And I was like, but, okay, Attillah, come down, man, do a little Shango podcast. You need to do it. You need to do it because, our mythology also has lots of amazing lessons that we need to be learning and we need to be teaching our people. Energy is energy anywhere. And certain energies manifest in human beings anywhere.
Yeah.
Way before we had a language for it, way before we had a representation of it, these energies existed. And when we tap into those energies, when we tap into the energy of the road, we are tapping into something that is very ancient and primordial, and that really ties us to our human experience.
Yeah, but still more people in this here speaking. Because it's true. Because, a part of it is, and again, my mind always goes back to how we going to get this in Newtown boys. I just go back to my education. Newtown boys, Fatima, Yui, But I think you're right in that the systems we have are there.
You know,
and it's for more
like,
of us.
I
to
always
do
talk
it.
about Soca yoga, right? Okay, when you hear Soca, the first thing that Trinidadians do is go, so,
Yeah.
all right? And then you put your hands in the air. You know what you're doing? You're increasing blood flow to your heart. If you just practice yoga, you know that that's what you're doing. When you whine, you're opening your sacral chakra, which is releasing your inhibitions and your fears and all of that. And also, it does wonders for your knees, right? I mean, you know, let's think about it. Let's think about it on multiple levels and multiple heights. There's a whole other thing that's going on at Carnival time, and that is Shivratri. And I remember a couple of years ago when Marshall was in India and he was taking part in Shivratri, everybody was shocked. Because they didn't know that there were people in Trinidad who were going through Shivratri at the same time. And, there were years when I played Mass and left Tong and gone to Hindu Prachar Kendra and spent the whole night in Hindu Prachar Kendra chanting for Lord Shiva. That is the nature of the space that we are in. There's so many things that are overlapping and so many energies that are, and, giving space and giving honor and giving respect to those energies is an important part of living in this space. And it transcends any party card, anything.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, I have too many stories.
Well, you see the disappointment with Miami. You understand my problem with Miami Carnival? No, when I go on South Beach and me and see a church camp, I say, well, what kind of carnival is this? This is not a carnival at all.
And this is the thing, right? Church camp. You know why they had a church camp? Because the Jumbie calling them too. So they had to go to the next side of the island to avoid the Jumbie calling them. That's why they had to have the church camp. The Jumbie calling them too.
Oh, it's loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear. We had to do the work to change this. And first and foremost, whenever you're ready for the podcast with David, that had to be done. I think we owe it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And 2 hours will never do justice to some of the things.
No, I mean, within the stick fight community, the majority of those fellas are laborers. They're taking a calculated risk to enter the ring. If you get damaged, there's no insurance, right? And that's a serious thing.
Correct.
Because if your hand damaged, you can't provide for your family for months at a time.
Yeah.
And offering people $10,000 to go into the ring, it's not enough. It's not enough. I mean, what are they doing? What are they doing outside of that? What are they doing outside of that? For the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like you see that for the rest of the year conversation, I find there's as we say, it's a flaw in the way we approaching this whole thing, because the assumption is that you go show up and do that again next year regardless.
Yeah.
As if you have nothing else to do with your life.
Look at a dotish thing, right? You could go to any community center and they offer in classes in kickboxing, boxing, table tennis, karate, etc., etc., etc.
Learn Spanish.
Can you find a single community center where there is even in Talparo that is historically recalled as one of the earliest and longest running guiles? Even in Talparo, can you find a stick fighting class in the Talparo Community Center? It have a community center there?
So let me ask you something. We depending on really the goodwill and the energy of people who just want to carry on tradition. We taking it a chance.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. And you see the thing is, right? The people who, for many people who are carrying on traditions, it's inherited. Right? They come and they meet their mother, their grandfather, somebody practicing this. They get roping, right? That's how it's be. That's how I remember getting involved in anything. It was like, from the time you could walk, this what you're doing. This what you are involved in, right? And it starts simple. When you're in your running yard,
you start to help out.
You're putting candle in the corners. You're figuring out where's east, west, north, and south. you're organizing the basin for the Omero, which is the water with the bush in it, so that when people coming in, they could cleanse their energy. It's like you begin to understand the parts of this machine and how they work together, right? You understand that there's a language. You understand that this person in the corner here, they're a little bit mad, but they are the best drummer, right? So just put him in the corner to drum.
And you're good.
Don't argue with him. Don't tell him nothing. Just give him the drum and let him drum. Brilliant drummer. Not good at anything else, right? And there are many communities that are like that. When you look around at them, you will always find. And it's like now we're talking about neurodivergence and things. But my whole life was full of neurodivergent people. In fact, I believe that the neurodivergent people are the normal ones. And the
normal ones.
The normal ones are the neurodivergent ones.
Yeah.
Because everybody that I knew was, like my dad used to, like he couldn't hear a steel band. It was something that used to like juke somewhere in his soul. There was something about it that, it made it impossible for him to sleep. There is a way that, these forms of screaming into the void. And when I say screaming into the void, I mean like acknowledging the chaos that is existence, right? You just spinning on a rock in the middle of space.
I guess.
And at any minute, like a meteor could come, an earthquake could come, a storm could come, and you could just be swallowed up and cease to exist. So much of our civilizational conversation is really around death avoidance, right? Because nobody ever come back and say, it actually not so bad,
Yeah, I was on the other side.
I was on the other side, and it actually come out kind of good, Nobody has ever actually come back from that, right? So now we have to create things that make this time have meaning.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
and
so
for some
the
people,
beginning.
that's money. I can't vex with them. That's what their journey in this existence is. But my journey in this existence is to make sure that somebody else after me doesn't, succumb to the chaos, and they could have some joy in their lives from just being here.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's something else from your website I want to read before we go in. Because I have one question for you before we done. You say, help organizations, institutions, and creatives turn culture into impact through heritage-rooted experiences that inspire, empower, and connect. Let me thank you for doing that and for doing everything that you're doing before. But I wanted to ask, for people like me, who's beads and tongues masquerader, and Fet, all-inclusive Fet go and VVIP and so on, I had this experience in one of them bands I play with a year where we break Charlotte Street, which I can't take the stalling on Charlotte Street, right? I managed to go home.
Yeah.
And I just decided I'd go on. I had enough of it. That was poison days, huh?
Yeah.
And we by the hospital for hours. You remember that I used to go? And I decided I'm going to, but so I go and walk back St. James. So I walk up by the Memorial Park and walk up by the Savannah. And I remember seeing a band coming out of Belmont. They had Bat, Gorilla,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, Whip.
Yeah.
I couldn't move.
Yeah.
I could not move. I sampled it for the, it was almost like that. It was a discovery for me that, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then when I'm walking back through St. James, when I was a teenager, I hear a band playing some old sort of classical music and things. When I say a band, was it 4 or 5 pan men by a corner, the men playing a song. Again, I can't move. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of, if you had to talk to somebody as a person, cultural insights that you might provide to get off of the path of the, what we call the commercial part of Carnival and get into the wider Carnival and experience it outside of Canboulay Riots, which I would reenactment. I would recommend it to anybody. By the time this coming out, we there, right, David? We there? But 4:30, right? Too early. We gotta get to we gotta give me the Stuart Young pass. We gotta get straight in. Don't comment on that. But yeah, what would you recommend that people experience and go to?
I would say, Trinidad is a place of access, right? So if you just take a little drive through Belmont, you'll see places where mass is making, and you stop and you have a conversation. Hey, afternoon. When are they coming out? And then next thing you know, you'll have a costume in the band, right? There's a kind of generosity that exists in those spaces where they want, because they're holding on to something that is almost invisible. They want visibility. They want recognition, and so. You could go anywhere in Belmont and find somewhere that you could play mass, right? You or just get information. The yards are very accessible. You don't have to find a committee member. You don't have to send a picture
Some
yourself.
people feel that's what the
and
whole Carnival is.
You don't have to give them your Bamsi size. None of those things you have to do. You just have to walk and look and find, right? And walk into any panyard. Walk into any panyard and say, hey, I'm an artist. And, the amount of times I storm All Stars on a Tuesday afternoon, I have no plans to pay mass. And then the Jumbie just shook me and I leave my house and I find All Stars. All Stars not on the GPS band locator.
Yeah.
They are never there. But you know what? All Stars is the sweetest band that it have in Port of Spain on a Tuesday afternoon, right? So what I'm saying is that the experiences are there. The experiences are there.
Yeah.
And the people who are holders of these spaces, they want you to come and experience what they have.
Yeah, the truth is, we you hear people complain that the Carnival too expensive, and I keep telling people you could do everything Carnival had to offer for free.
But also, we have changed the dynamic from Carnival being about community to Carnival being about consumption.
Oh, it's true.
And so if you feel that you don't have money to consume, then you feel that there's no space for you in the Carnival. And, I fundamentally reject that. There's nothing stopping you from making your own costume. There's nothing stopping you from you and your 3 friends hiring one of them pirate men who's be selling music things, right? I mean, and paying him $300 to walk with all your through the streets, and you play a mass. The thing is, people, we have when Maureen talks about we have abdicated our imagination. We have abdicated our imagination. It's like we can't see our way to be creative anymore. And this, to me, how? How have we reduced ourselves to 10,000 birds that cannot fly?
Yeah.
How have we done that?
And the round price of $10,000 a piece, you know what I mean? Once I hear
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, think about what's going on in the society now. Think about what was going on in the society in the 1880s. Mass was being made that commented on what was going on, right? So when it had a cholera outbreak, the mass that was being played was doctor and nurse, right? when it had a rise in crimes in Port of Spain, police and thief was a big mass, right? So people were always responding, and I'm not talking about an old mass competition. I'm talking about people embodying something for 2 days.
Yeah, for themselves.
Have we gone to the point where we don't want to embody anything anymore? Yeah. We don't want to be like a bigger, more beautiful version of ourselves. Just one that ready for the gram. That's all. That's all. And the other thing is when you see people posing for pictures, right? Right? And all the people in the background looking bored because everybody just waiting to take a picture. So people playing mass for 2 hours and then getting rid of the backpack and then going and sit down in a air-conditioned maxi. No, you're supposed to take sun. And if you cannot take sun, stay home.
That's all the costumes are so...
Let's have a conversation about how climate change is going to change the way that we play mass.
We ain't having that conversation yet.
We're not having that conversation yet, but it's going to become a reality, and it's already a reality. Because I see some people who are like 10 shades darker, and they have a banner on their head like this.
I see a
when they take off their costume.
I see a little girl from England. She must be 20 a little bit. And boy, she on there. She said, "It didn't tell me what this was. This is crazy." And she didn't nobody explained to her about Germany.
And it's like the mass designers are not even thinking about how to make mass to shade the masqueraders. You know, it's like, how is the mass responsive? If you think about Pan, if you think about Kaiso a little bit,
Yeah.
and if you think about mass, you know, those were considered the 3 golden threads of Carnival.
Right.
And that was a random decision that was made by, I think, Eric Williams back in the establishment of the CDC, right? Or whatever was the organization
NCC
that
at that time.
existed before then, right? So you make this random decision that Pan, Mass, and Kaiso is the 3 things that we, and those are the the interest groups, the special
Right.
interest
I see.
groups, right?
See, it's
So those 3 special interest groups that have representation and subvention and those kind of things from the government, right? But what about theater? What about Fetes? What about stick fight?
Yeah, that's
What about all of those other things that make up Carnival? That are not necessarily mass, they're not necessarily Pan, they're not necessarily Kaiso. They include all of them,
Yeah.
but where's the place for them? You know, where's the place for intangible holders of intangible knowledge?
Yeah.
Where's the place for, you know, people like the Alfred family? And when you go down by them, they do their 40 days
Right.
observance, and their whips are made of agave. Agave is the thing that, you know, but that is a healing plant. There's a whole other part of the mass that is about the healing plants that go with it. You know, who's talking to stick fighters about what time of the year you go into the bush to cut pui, right? How you use mount a stick.
Yeah.
All of those things.
You might be able to put on a spreadsheet,
there is
I don't.
all of those things. Yeah, I
Yeah, it'll
was
remain
in
unsaid.
Geneva last year, and I was I met the World Intellectual Property Organization now has a fellow on it's like traditional knowledge or something like that. So they have these new elements of intellectual property that have to do with traditional knowledge, genetic memory, all of those things. We are miles away from even acknowledging any of those things. And by the time we do, a lot of the people who are holders of that knowledge are going to be gone. I mean, I consider myself to be very fortunate in that, you know, I was part of that bridge generation,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I remember analog mass. I remember mass that was, I remember mass that was, you know, I remember Bompart.
It's
Playing mass. I remember Edgar Wiley.
you were there.
I remember Matthew Wiley. I remember, you know, lots of people who are just not there anymore, right? You know, I remember the year when Tricanal played blue,
Yeah.
right?
Hello,
It's
yeah.
like there was a way that mass was played pre-digital that doesn't exist anymore. I'm telling you, it's a completely different thing. And the people who remember pre-digital mass and the people who created mass as makers, those people are dying off. And the knowledge of the making is dying off with them. Now everybody is a consumer and nobody actually knows how to make anything anymore. Maybe that will usher in a different kind of creativity. And I always ask my artist friends, I was like, well, they're fighting up to have a piece in a gallery. We have 3 galleries in Port of Spain, right? You're fighting up to have a piece in a gallery. Ever thought about doing an exhibition in a panyard? Or you ever thought about making mass?
Yeah, Beyond Your Road
Because
is the biggest
Carnival
exhibition.
was
Yeah.
an artist. George Bailey was an artist.
Yeah.
Minchell was an artist.
That was the display.
Is an artist, right? You had so many artists who were entering into that space. I mean, Carnival is our biggest living canvas.
Yeah.
And we're not using it.
David, we're making a mass. Right? That's the solution. We're making a mass.
And
We're
that's the
making a
thing,
mass.
the
We're gonna
mask
do
could
it.
be ugly, it could be falling apart, it
It's
could
a
be
mass.
stupid, but it's a mass.
It's a mass, it's a
It's
mass,
an
it's a mass.
opportunity for you to do something that represents you.
For sure.
You really represented by a piece of plastic that get import from China. What's that really saying about you?
Yeah. We're gonna make a mass. So thank you very much. This was a pleasure. It was worth the wait. And 4:30, right?
Yeah.
Still
earlier.
young. Still young.
I would say you need to reach there for 2.
How much Prados I need to gain by half full? If I come at like 5, 6 Prado,
Not even Prado getting in a bus.
I know, I saw. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful thing to see all the vehicles park up on Nelson Street. But thank you very much. Thank you very much.